to my snacks 123 on Rumble. I say again, welcome to my snacks 123 on Rumble. SNAKZ 123 on Rumble. And welcome to my YouTube channel, Eric Broadus YouTube, ERICBROADUS YouTube, or Eric Broadus YouTube.com. And so, guys, this is a topic that I just wanted to cover and just talk about. And this is real. And today's topic, it'll be the bitterness soldiers carry after bad leadership decisions. And I'll say it again: the bitterness soldiers carry after bad leadership decisions. And so you can replace soldiers with Coast Guardsmen, for Air Force airmen, obviously Army is soldiers. For the Marines, you could say Marines. And for the Navy, you could say sailors. Plug it in. It's all the same. All right. But anyway, there are wounds the military doesn't put on your medical record, and one of the deepest is bitterness, born from decisions you had no power to stop. Okay. Now, um, most service members, we understand risk, we accept danger. We understand that's what we swore in under oath, you know, to the Constitution and that flag, in the United States. And when we sign that contract. But what's hard to accept is avoidable loss caused by bad decisions. You know, and you know, the position can make that military member, serviceman or servicewoman, feel powerless. Orders come down. Proper context is missing. Sometimes consequences are immediate, and accountability is often delayed or non-existent. Basically, you carry out decisions, but you carry the weight forever. Okay. How is bitterness formed? Let's see. Moral injury, betrayal of trust, survivor's guilt, watching incompetence outrank competence. Okay. And many times, those of us that are in the military, those that are serving and have served, have experienced this, perceived failure, leadership breakdown, systemic pressure. you know and the question you probably might ask, okay, why does this bitterness fester after service? um Some of it could be no debrief, for the moral injustice. Um, Civilian life, on the civilian side, some civilians that have never served, they may not understand. Veterans are told to move on, which is easier said than done. And silence hardens resentment. And I want to briefly go into something here, and obviously this is real life experience, as to why I'm bringing up this topic. And this is in regards to a combat situation, but how this actually started, you know. Um, let me tell my story here, okay? What happened, and I'm gonna leave names out, and I'll leave locations out. I'll leave names out, locations out. So um to keep that sealed. What I'm saying, and also to keep the identities of the individuals private. Okay, but what happened is I had gotten stationed in a certain location, and a lot of times the military has a high turnover rate and can have a high operations tempo. But in general, when we are in overseas duty assignments, and it happens stateside too, but stateside, you can more or less homestead, or hang out longer because that's our home station. So unless you request permanent change of station, or put in for orders to go to another location stateside, that kind of leave you in place because you're already here in America. But with overseas locations, you have a set time limit that you can remain in that location before they will either move you to another overseas assignment, or they will send you back CONUS, to the United States. But anyway, so with the military, the ops tempo and turnover rate is high because people are moving around, you know. And what happened is that I had been assigned to a new location, and I had only been um, in this country and at this location maybe about 45 days. And so, um, me being at the time in mid-level leadership, I had individuals up under me, and I had other non-commissioned officers that were up under me. And what happened is that they allowed my replacement to leave without giving a writing a performance rating on a certain individual. And how I was taught in the military is that um, if you don't know the individual, and even if you do know the individual, when you're first getting ready to meet them, when you do that performance rating, they start out at the highest level, and then from there, depending on as you observe and see their work, and how they perform their duties, they either going to work themselves down, or they're going to remain as a superior performer. Okay. And um I believe in being fair. I was taught by leadership that if you have not seen your subordinates work, if you have not been able to observe it clearly, and you have not been able to really work with them, you on a different shift, they're on a different shift, and you're just coming, and you really don't know them. And so I was taught to you have to flat out give them the highest rating, unless they do something extremely bad. In fairness to them, you have to give them the highest rating because you know nothing about them, and you haven't been given any feedback or turnover, on these subordinates, that you are required, as a rating official. And so I was on a different shift than this particular junior non-commissioned officer, and so I have only been in the country 45 days. I was still in processing the base and still getting familiar with the layout of things, and hadn't really been at the job too much. And so my immediate boss above me, or supervisor, and then my head boss, which happened to be the section, what I'm saying, or unit chief, they dumped, his performance reporting, on me, which they should not have let the person I replaced. They shouldn't have let them leave until they had done performance report on them. And so it got dropped in my lap, and I never seen the guy work before, and I was on a totally different shift. Okay. And so they put pressure on me to write it. I said, well, the guy that I replaced, he left. He didn't leave me, any feedback, what I'm saying, no paperwork, no nothing, on anything that he did, that he accomplished. So I was totally blind, and they wanted me to rate this individual, you know, um at a certain rating level. And I was like, well, that's not fair. And it's not that they wanted to rate him average or poorly, but they didn't think that he should get the highest rating, as being exceptional and superior. And I stuck, what I'm saying, to my guns to be fair. And so what little bit I did know about this individual and what I observed, I was like, well, it looked like he's up to par, to me. But sometimes leadership and your bosses can have their picks, and sometimes they can have people that they may not favor. or sometimes, they just may not like the individual, and they don't want to see them get an extremely high performance rating which could enable them to get promoted in, say, maybe the next cycle, and then that can open up a door for them to get, it could open up a door for them to make their next two stripes. And so some leaders, are petty, like that. Well, anyway, I'm going to make a to end this portion of it. um, I stood out for this individual. I said, hey, I'm going to rate him according to the general rule to be fair to this individual. I know nothing about them. I'm not on the same shift with them. And so I don't know, what I'm saying, and I'm still new here. And so what happened, I said to my immediate supervisor above me, and to you know my chief. I said, well, look, I said, if you think that this individual doesn't deserve this particular rating, since you've been here with him for the past couple of years, why don't you guys write it? Because your senior leadership, they can, overturn a rating, or they can write the report themselves. But they wanted to use me, so to speak, to do their dirty work, so that way they can hide their hands and um, not seem like the bad guys and still smile on this guy's face. And I was like, I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? I have to have integrity, and believe in being honest, And so um, they put pressure on me to write it. And so I wrote the performance report, and I gave them superior and a outstanding performance review, on his report. And they wanted me to change, what I'm saying, to downgrade the rating and to mark um some areas, what I'm saying, to the left and to the instead of going all the way to the far right. And so this is what happened, what I'm saying, and then I'm going to get to go further down the road, as to what happened. So anyway, um uh, when I refused to change um the rating that I had given, I said, hey, look, y'all can change it right if you want to, but they didn't want to seem like the bad guys. They wanted to make me seem like the bad guy and dump it on me because I was new there, And so what happened is that my senior, all of a sudden, what happened is my senior, the chief, saying, of the unit, um he switched me on an assignment, and he sent me, basically to the combat zone, out of spite, to be like, well, we're gonna make you suffer and pay because you allowed him, to get, this particular rating, that, and we don't particularly care for this guy too much. And me, I never had a problem. I'm saying, I don't see, why he doesn't deserve the rating, and what it is that he's doing wrong, you know. But they were harsh and critical, so they made me pay. And believe you me, what I'm saying, I paid. You know what I'm saying, and on my ratings and my performance report, um, for all that I did, when I went to the combat zone, and my immediate supervisor wasn't there to see what I did, and I had done a quite a bit, but um he marked me down, what I'm saying, as a retaliation, so this was like retaliation, you know. But so I get sent to the combat zone, right? And the point I want to make here, this is sometimes where leadership goes wrong. Well, in this particular um fob that I served at, but it was a joint command, all branches of service were there. um I almost, got unalived, what I'm saying? I mean, everything, what I'm saying? It was going crazy, what I'm saying? Bombs, bullets, um, explosive ordnance, um, what I'm saying? Devices, mortars, you know, um, I'm trying to think, what else? 21,000, prisoners, um at certain times trying to break out, you know out of the detainee center, trying to break out of it, to some to get to us, and some to escape to get back out, what I'm saying, to the terrorist cell. Okay. And so, all right, so all right, I dig it, what I'm saying. Sent me on a rough deployment. Saying where conditions was harsh, but from it, I did learn a lot. But here's where I'm following on to where I really felt, at some point devastated, and I was really hurt, by something that happened like this. There was on this assignment, and I don't want to. I'm not going to say which. I'm not going to say branch of service, so I'll just keep it military neutral. But some branches of service, they train 90%, of the group, and they leave the other 10% to be trained by the rest of the group. Whereas other branches of service, they train 100% of the people that are in that unit, or the group. And so, um, with this particular case, um they needed bodies, to go out, on this particular patrol and convoy. And so they sent um this young man that was maybe about 20, 21, going on 22, and he worked in motor pool. He was a mechanic, and he was not trained to go out on convoys. He wasn't trained, and his vehicle was not up armored, and he did not have the proper warlock systems and the ECM jammers. It's like a electric electromagnetic. These are like control systems, and so what these warlock systems, and those of you, like I said, you guys know that's in the military. It's military that's been out on been out on patrols or either on convoys. Y'all know what this stuff is. But these particular systems, they install them on the vehicle, and what their function and their purpose is, it is to jam the signals, of from, say, an enemy detonating any explosive devices, and even try to jam the signals of any, say, maybe possible um, anti-aircraft, that may rely on certain types of radar or signals in order to reach their target. So these, and they have them on planes too, what I'm saying, installed on planes also, but on fighter planes. But these ECM jammers, or these warlock systems, that is what they do. They jam the system, and they are able to prevent, what I'm saying, it's pretty accurate, prevent detonation of devices while you on that convoy, or patrol. So um it greatly enhances and increases life expectancy. Nothing is 100%, but it greatly increases it. And so um the problem that myself and others, what I'm saying, had with it is that this young man was untrained. He was sent, and they put him at the front, of the convoy. And this guy, what I'm saying, he's a young kid, and he was he had a fiance back in the States. He was set to get married, you know, good kid, and the problem myself and others had, we knew that this was a bad decision, but it's like some of the leadership in this particular zone, um they didn't care, what I'm saying, that this individual was untrained. There were other individuals that they could have sent out on a convoy. And on top of that, um, they never should have been allowed off the fob without an up armored vehicle. This right here would have bettered their chances of survival. No up armor, people still get unalived or wiped out in up armored vehicles, also, so don't get it twisted. But um here's the fallout of what happened to this young man. There was others, that were in that vehicle, and all three were unalived. What happened, as they were getting across the bridge, there was explosive ordnance devices that were put up under the bridge, and when the terrorists or the enemy detonated it, um what happened? it blew, it sent, saying sent all individuals different ways outside the vehicle. You know, the individual that was riding in the turret as the gunner, they and please forgive me if I'm being a little bit graphic here. I forgot about that, but I'm gonna say it as it is. Um, the gunner that was up in the turret got split in half. The other individual, shotgun, and the young man I told you guys about, they were blowed separate ways outside the door. Okay. Um, that young man, um, when he was blowed out and was on the concrete or the pavement, you know, um, his legs were blown off. You know what I'm saying? And um, they couldn't get the 9-line medevac to these individuals in time. So, because the 9-line medevac was late, basically all of these individuals, some were actually killed instantly, but um, um, it was too late. You know what I'm saying? So he bled out. You know what I'm saying? Right there, on the road because they couldn't get the 9-line medevac to him. You know, and so I use that, and I mean, I know that's a terrible example, but I'm being real about something. Um, and that's an extreme case because we were in combat. And I'm quite sure many of you have had leadership, whether if you're a civilian, you've had bad leadership, in your organizations that made some, terrible decisions. And they say that we learn more from bad leadership than we do from good, from those experiences. But what I'm describing here is a real life and worst case scenario, in the military. And stuff like this could happen with law enforcement. It can happen with the fire department or any individuals that work in dangerous fields. You know what I'm saying? So this can happen. If a leader makes a bad decision. But I'm gonna stick this, to the military and about why some veterans, you know what I'm saying, or current active duty service members, why they can harbor, you know, um, some bitterness and they can have unresolved resentment and tension, against prior leadership, or current, leadership, based on the decisions that they make. Because in the military, um, when you make a decision as a leader, it has a profound impact on the whole group, not just the individual, because of the way we're structured, you know. And with the military, we're structured, saying to become one. So when a leader, especially if they're high up, makes a decision like that, it has a trickle down effect upon the whole unit. And not just me, myself, and others. When you see that vehicle, it is no fun um, seeing plastered and melded flesh and blood on a vehicle, and you can smell it, the smell of death. That's no fun. And it's like it's one thing to for servicemen and women to put their lives on the line, when we know we this is what we signed up for, we swore in, and we understand that this right here, it can happen. I'm saying that's just part of being in the military. I'm saying, if you get called to serve in that capacity, that's just life. I'm saying, you deal with it. But you don't want to see someone, I'm saying, suffer loss or damage of life and limbs because of something that a decision a leader made. And I'm talking about, they were really callous with it. They just didn't even care. You know what I'm saying? And some might say, well, maybe they had no choice. No, they did have a choice, and they did have other options. There were other individuals that were trained, what I'm saying, to go out on convoys and to go out on patrol, and that had up armored vehicle. They could have better and had the Warlock and the ECM jammers, and electronic devices installed on their vehicles. So all of this, there were more, saying, than enough up armored vehicles. Why? this particular leader, and this right here, this was a higher ranking officer, and I, for the life of me, I could not figure out why, you know, would you do that? And many of us, we were really baffled by it. And at this particular assignment of fob, there was a bunch of other things that went down. You know what I'm saying? People losing weapons, couldn't find out where handguns, and even there was a few that even lost, you know what I'm saying, rifles. How in the world? I do not know. You know, um, other bad decisions with this leadership. Um, you have a total of about 28 to probably 29,000 military and some civilians, and 21,000 detainees, you know, on this particular forward operating base. And so um, everybody has to eat and has to be fed, so it's like as the leaders, you're supposed to have, what I'm saying, have your battle plan, what I'm saying, contingency plans in place, what I'm saying, because troops and detainees, they're going to need food, water, and shelter. you know you have to have those things, else your military can't function without it. Give me a second, guys. Let me close. I'm sorry about that. Let me close this window. But you have to have food, water, and shelter. You know, those are the basics. Other than that, your military can't function. But due to bad leadership, they had brought us to a point to where we were down to something like what was it? We got down to something like 3 weeks of food, and I think maybe a month's worth of water left. They failed to properly plan, you know, for with they didn't have a contingency plan. When I can't, I'm getting ready to say the location. I don't want to say the location, but where we were at, um, the particular government had cut us off from sending convoys because it was blocking up traffic, and there were complaints. So that would mean we would have to take a different route, which would make us drive further 6 to 8 hours into dangerous territory. And that means that obviously casualties and loss of life goes up. What I'm saying, because now we got to drive deeper. We got to go 6 to 8 hours just to come back around to get into another country, to get supplies in and re up, because at the time, um we didn't have a landing pad or a runway built. And so now they were making plans at the last minute to have a runway built, and so that aircraft could land and they could fly the supplies, but they waited too late. They waited too late. But I'm using these this is really happened, real life scenarios, to drive a point home about bad leadership, and then the decisions that they make, and how it can cause, what I'm saying, it can cause servicemen and servicewomen and veterans, to be bitter over something that they have no control over. Um, Nobody, what I'm saying, wants to serve in a combat zone, and um everybody's, what I'm saying, you going hungry, or now you about to get starved out because your leadership didn't plan right. That's demoralizing. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna piss a lot of people off, and it's also demoralizing. So we are stuck out here, and we suffering because the leadership at the top failed to appropriately plan. And I mean, when I was on that particular deployment, I mean, oh my goodness, I have seen some leaders that they in position of power, but um some of them, to me, they seem like they were dumb as a box of rocks. Like they don't have good common sense. It's like you have the rank, power, and authority, but you don't have the common sense and the wisdom, to go along with it. They don't have um appropriate foresight. They don't think. But yeah, and you know that really was a very it was a sad sight. I mean, there were other things that happened, but I was so heartbroken and disappointed because it's different. When I guess it's still is devastating when it's somebody that's close to your unit, even if they're a different branch of service. You know what I'm saying? But when you know that person and you see them day in and day out, hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah, such and such. And then all of a sudden the next it's one thing for them to be gone because hey, there's nothing they can do about it. It's another for them to be gone and taken so young when different decisions could have been made and that person could have still been here and they could have carried on with their lives, could have got married, what I'm saying, had a family, what I'm saying. That's devastating. you know that right there is devastating. And that's why, it's like I said, I'm wondering why. I tell you, some of you guys, if you haven't served before, have a little empathy, saying, for your vets, saying, because you don't know what they've been through and stuff like this is real life. This is not paperwork. Even if it was, say, millions and billions of dollars, you know a corporation can make that money back, what I'm saying? But you can't bring that person, and you can't bring those people back, what I'm saying, that was KIA'd. They ain't never coming back. What I'm saying? And I thought it was unfair, and I thought it was a cowardice way to go out, that um those individuals have to go back home in a body bag or a coffin and present their families, with a crispy folded flag. But those officers in leadership, um, you don't have the guts, what I'm saying, or the courage to stand, before their families and explain exactly what it is that you did that led to that outcome. I thought it was a cowardice way, you know? If you made a decision like that, can you stand, what I'm saying, before their parents? Can you stand before those mothers and explain, what I'm saying, about the asinine decision that you made, being crash, cruel, and selfish, what I'm saying, that led, what I'm saying, to that outcome? Can you explain it? Can you explain it to fathers? Can you explain it to brothers, sisters, what I'm saying, what happened to their siblings, what I'm saying, due to the decision that you made that it did not have to be? Can you explain it to their spouses? Can you look their children in the eye and explain to them what happened to their father or their mother? And I'm being real, guys. And, it's a cowardice way out. And definitely when you're in a combat zone, decisions have to be made, but um, you are supposed to take, what I'm saying, all protective measures. And like I said, there are some leaders. I'm going to keep it real. There are some leaders that they don't care. I have to be honest. There are some leaders, they do not care. And having to witness that, it's like, but you are powerless. You can't do anything about it. And they did threaten us that we are not to go to any news outlets. Whatever happened at that fob, it stays there. And if they found out that any of us told, there would be severe consequences and repercussions. Because you best believe, what I'm saying, oh, I was ready to collect after they call it after action reports that they make military members fill out when we come back off of deployment, and especially off a combat zone. And it deals with everything from it's like a survey, and it's got psychological evaluations. What did you think? What do you think of what happened here, and blah blah blah. And we're supposed to write a report, a full length report and a statement. Everybody that was at that fob. And so um I was on a mission to start collecting other people's after action reports, and I was going to collect mine because, see, my sibling works in media, and I showed enough, I was so pissed off that I was going to give it, saying, to her, so that she can, I'm saying, take it on up, I'm saying, and get it put out there and get the report and put them on blast, I'm saying. But when I got back to my regular duty station, one of my senior leadership, they sat me down and they said, I don't recommend that you do that, and what he told me, he said, I promise you, he said, if you leak that out, and I would have given it to my sibling, and she works in media, you know what I'm saying? Then it gets to the news, and boom, now it's out, and you put that fob on blast. He said what they're gonna do, they know exactly how many bodies, were on that particular deployment. They know who was there. He said, and then what they would do, they're gonna trace it back to you. And then he said after that, he said the military is gonna make your life a living hell, meaning that I wouldn't have been able to retire. If you guys ever seen that movie with I think it was Will Smith, Enemy of the State, you know, but I mean they was messing his life up, man. So he said that's pretty much what they would have done to me, and he said my career and my plans for retirement would have been over. And so basically, in a nutshell, basically I had to keep my mouth shut, you know, and not tell, because that's going to lead to investigations. And when investigations with the military come down, heads start rolling, you know. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, why does bitterness? This is some of the reasons why it festers. No debrief for moral injustice. You know what I'm saying. Sometimes civilians, they don't understand. You know what I'm saying. And veterans are told basically shut up and move on. Move on. You know what I'm saying. Silence hardens resentment. What is the dangerous path? Okay. Bitterness can turn into isolation. Isolation can turn into resentment. Resentment can turn into anger. Distrust of authority. Self-destructive behavior. You know. Now, what I would say, what I'm saying, for my vets, if this is impacting any of you, I would say, make sure um you get counseling and debriefing. You know what I'm saying? You can't change the past decisions of bad leadership. You can choose what bitterness becomes and to heal from it. Leadership failure does not define your worth and who you are. Wisdom, it comes from processing, not suppressing. So if you have any negative feelings and stuff like that, don't suppress it. You know what I'm saying? You know process it. You know what I'm saying? That's how we get through it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, some of us may need more help than others. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna close because I've been out here for a minute. Okay. Bad leadership decisions, um they can scar, what I'm saying, servicemen and servicewomen. But carrying bitterness forever, it only gives those decisions more power than they deserve. And that's why forgiveness is important. Why we have to learn to forgive, because it's not about forgiving the other person, but what it does, it sets us free. It sets us free. Anyway, to my vets out there, um, when this occurred with you guys, how did you process disappointment or bitterness after leadership decisions you did not agree with? You know what I'm saying? Please share it, and share if you don't feel comfortable sharing it in the comment section, please share with others you're comfortable with, what I'm saying? But that's how we heal, what I'm saying? But for those that are comfortable, please leave a comment, what I'm saying? Share it, and for my civilians, that can relate. Some of you may work in dangerous environments. It could be the medical field, it could be fire department, it could be law enforcement, it can be construction, you know what I'm saying? Where it's also on other hazardous materials, where stuff it's a dangerous career field that you work in. Please share it. And even for those, if you're a paper pusher, whatever, if you work jobs that maybe it may not be life and limb, but bad decisions lead to other outcomes, firings. What I'm saying, HR. You know what I'm saying? Please, I'd love to dialogue with you, and you know, love to hear. What I'm saying, what you have to say. But forgiveness, guys, military or not. What I'm saying, that's how we get healed. What I'm saying, we have to forgive so that it sets us free, and that we can move on. But that's all I have, for this one. This right here, my live, man, might have been a little bit longer, but I'm done on this one, and I thank you guys for listening and for your support on Snacks 123 on Rumble, and for the subscribers on Eric Broadus YouTube, and I thank all my podcast followers on Snack Stores as well. But thank you guys, what I'm saying, for listening. I'm gonna close this out. And again, this is Snacks 123 on Rumble. So please subscribe. What I'm saying, follow me. Hit the like or unlike button, to like the live or videos. Either way, leave a comment. Love to hear your thoughts. Everyone has an opinion and everyone has a different perspective and has a right to be heard. And for my folks on Eric Broadus YouTube, my subscribers, thank you. Please smash that, hit the bell, hit the notification to turn it on, and also smash that bell to become a subscriber. Hit the like or unlike button to like or unlike the videos. Either way, leave a comment. Love the dialogue with you. Also, hit the hype button immediately so you hype the video. You know what I'm saying? And please check out my Snack Thoughts podcast. SNAKZTHOUGHTS Snack Thoughts. Podcast can be found on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Radio PBM, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and a host of other social media outlets. Last, I have the 5 best weight loss products, guys. Next to God, the next best thing you have is your health. Your health is your wealth. You get one body, one life to live. Take care of it, and your health will take care of you. But that's all I have on this one, guys. And I'm gonna sign out, what I'm saying, on this one. Peace out, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one later.